want this land to be better in 100 years than it was in 100 years past. We're fighting uranium miners now. Maybe the last great battle that I'm fighting.
In 2007, PowerTech Corporation out of Canada proposed uranium mining upstream from the Horse Sanctuary. And Dayton heard about that and they got it off.
Petitioner before the Nuclear Regulatory Commission against PowerTech's application to mine uranium within view from here in the same aquifer of water.
Hey, Mackenzie. Can you hear me?
I had it muted because the video is playing still in the background here.
Oh, okay.
Give me 1 second. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, how are you? I'm almost home.
Okay. I think she's trying to do it from her phone, and it's good. I think she's we're getting a little, the bandwidth there really isn't there for you. You should have a good 10 minutes. Don't crash.
5 minutes. Point.
She said she's 5 minutes from home. Okay, so you're all set up. You'll be able to see right here. It's using this, and it's embedded right now, so people could actually start watching it right now. Just so you know.
It's embedded where?
It's on. I put it on the post, and I'll show the post now. So it's embedded into that post.
Oh, all right. It's a little automatically saved there too.
Yeah, yeah, it should. It should archive and save it unless they change something. No. We're not going to pretend to know in the last 3-4 months. You know.
I know.
Yeah.
Moving target.
Okay, I'm gonna get back over there so you guys should be able to chat. I'll come over if there's an issue. I can also grab the walk in case you're having trouble with something.
All you have to do is that.
All you have to do is basically, you'll see me on chat right here.
Text me. We can text each other.
Okay, but you'll see me on chat when it's over. I'll share it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna use the restroom.
What all the relatives, all friends, I want to thank you very much for being here and showing your support. I want to name Mr. David Hyde. I'm going to give him a name name. Thank everybody here for this good honor that President Rock tonight. I hope that others will continue to support the very spiritual land here. It's up to every person here to keep those miners digging holes on this land and take care of this place. Nobody has always understand what there was to become parents. This was one of my favorite. Nothing to so it's tiny bird being this thing. But maybe singing in the woods are long to know that I mean. I fancy such a glorious voice. The tone is just the same. The jokes are still obsessed with no better than on the phone. This tiny tiny tenor song whose music starts me down. Half a century has passed since I saw that little around. It's time I went to Michigan. I went to Michigan. I don't think I've ever ceased to be that lonely kid in northern Michigan. Many a man has loved several women, so I have lived several places. You asked in Oregon, Prairie, South Dakota, the Plateau. That's one of my regrets. My father was never around to know what all his kids became in life. He died early. Our lives are still forming. After this goes into going south for every few miles ahead of us. You keep going as long as you can and make the most every day, 7 days a week. And a cowboy comes to this, and you climb a set of stairs to get on a horse. Oh man, that's good. You just don't stop. Just keep on going and looking and trying to figure out what can make life important. Next step. Well, a cowboy can do quite a bit. There's the bigger dream. I'm going to change the middle roast. Correct the voice spread, and once more visitors are now taking over the other project. We must never forget the beauty Mustangs thundering across the prairie open. For no other reason than to feel joy, coursing through their veins. The music of Johnny Roots echoed from each of their hearts. As they listened, I whispered to myself a long remembered line of John Keats early in that drill. Sad as that music, but I waited for sleep. Strolling across the pastures and beyond, one old cowboy sings his song through the ashes, clouds of gray.
Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, Suzanne.
It's been a while.
How's the film? Are there a lot of people online watching? Can you
Uh,
tell?
Well, there aren't a lot of people, in part because, we weren't successful last week. We really haven't been advertising it. We've been trying to keep a low profile to sort of prove up this entire project.
Right.
But the people who have been watching it liked it very much.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And first of all, tell people, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit something about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a filmmaker from New York who just drove home at a record speed from a Manhattan Christmas party so that I could be on this call. Literally walked into the door of my house as the credits were rolling. So timing is everything. But I'm a filmmaker who found Dayton Hyde 23 years ago in 1992 when I was doing a People magazine special for ABC as a television producer at the time, and found his story so incredible. It was a short piece that I was doing for ABC on the 20th anniversary of People magazine. And I really felt like he deserved a film. And my cameraman at the time said, we should really do a feature. This was back in 1992. And with the advent of HD, and 10 years later, we actually began the process of making Running Wild and finished it in late 2012. And it premiered at the 2013 Slam Dance Film Festival, which happens in Park City during that same week of Sundance. And the rest is history. And Dayton's still going strong. So for anybody out there who's worried about him, he purchased another 3,000 acres of land next to his property and spent this entire summer fencing it.
He's 90. He must
At
be
90.
At 90. Yes, that's marvelous. He's a real inspiration. One of the things I think people are most curious about, and I know I was when I first saw this film, Suzanne, was how you got such intimate details from him and from the family. I mean, it's a very moving but a very intimate view of him and his family. Not just his accomplishments, but the impact that it's had on his entire family, his wife and his children. And, you know, it's a very poignant story. And I think people respond to that, one man following his dream and understanding that there's a wake when one person does that. Could you address that?
I think it's, I mean, you know, when you spend enough time with somebody, I think they come to trust you. So in terms of Dayton being able to expose himself, warts and all, it took a while. He's a cowboy. He's a rugged man. You know, he wasn't going to shed a tear on camera. Cowboys are tough, right? But I think that in the end, and we had spent so many years with him, and then I became, of course, as a filmmaker, you become a personal friend of the person that you're filming. It just naturally happens. He then was able, in the latter part of our filming experience together, to reveal some of the things that he said. In terms of the family, I think that Gerda, his wife, wanted to get a lot of things off of her chest, and we gave her that opportunity to say those things. And, you know, I think in the end, she understood. Maybe it hurts that he's not there all the time, but she understood that he needed to go. And I have to remind viewers this all the time, that when Dayton left to start the sanctuary, first of all, in the beginning phase, he was back and forth between Oregon and South Dakota. And it wasn't until he realized that he needed to be there full time that he actually permanently left Oregon. And his kids were grown. I mean, they were married. They had their own lives. They had grandchildren. So many times people see this and they say, how could he have left his kids? But his kids were all adults and had kids of their own.
Oh, sure.
You know, and it's interesting because they've never really formally divorced. They're just, you know, officially separated, so to speak. Yeah. And they came back together for that reunion of the Yamsey Ranch, or anniversary of the Yamsey Ranch, which turned 100 years old in the course of our filming. And that is where we picked up most of those interviews with the family, because we were there for the 100th anniversary. And Dayton went home as well.
Well, I think that there's something that resonates about his story with older people, Suzanne. And you're not my age, but I am the age at which he started the South Dakota Ranch. And, you know, and I can understand the drive to not retire, for another project, to, you know, to reinvent yourself, to have that last stage of your life be meaningful as opposed to sort of fading in place.
Right.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people my age have those kinds of ambitions or kinds of dreams. I will be interested to see what people are saying on chat. Let me go to the chat and see if people are talking about it. I'd like to see if anybody does have something to add on the chat. I would appreciate them doing.
Or any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, for sure. So so I don't think it's unusual for people to at least have that desire, you know, whether they act on it. I think it takes a certain sort of a brave person to do that. You know, the status quo is a very, you know, strict mistress, if you will.
Right.
So a couple things I also would like to ask you about the making of the film, Suzanne. I've never really had an opportunity to talk with the filmmaker, so I don't know all that goes into making a film. But as a director and a producer, you put everything together, isn't that correct? I mean, you select the music, you mix the music with the background, and I have to say that I thought the music was beautiful. And,
oh, thank you.
And it supported the visuals.
Well, it's interesting because at the same time that I was starting to make this film in 2002, I was listening to the radio here in New York on a channel called FUV, which is an independent college radio station. probably similar to the one that you have in Missoula. And I was stuck in traffic at the George Washington Bridge in the morning, and there was a musician on, and he was talking about his relationship with Jewel, the musician Jewel.
Yes.
He was her boyfriend, and he was the one that found her in a coffee shop as a barista and wrote the song "You Are Meant for Me," which of course was a huge payday, not only for her but for him. And he was talking about all of these stories, and he was making me laugh, which doesn't happen very often. And I tracked him down because I knew he was in New York, and this is pre Google Maps, right? You had to actually get into the 411 and figure out where the club was that he was playing. And I wanted to do a television program with him. At the time, I didn't think about him for this film. I just thought he could be funny as a television series, a traveling troubadour. And we started to talk, and I was telling him about this film. He goes, "Oh, I'd be interested in that." And then, of course, we then became friends. We did many projects together, and he thought I would never get this film finished. And then when I finally was nearing the end, I invited him out to meet Dayton Hyde, because at this point we were good friends, and he took the trip. And I think that made all the difference in the music, because he got to meet the man, he got to feel the place, he got to breathe the air, really be on that ranch. And then when he went back on tour, and while on tour, he would sit in his hotel room at night and write the music. And then we all ascended, my editor, myself, and another cameraman, went to Austin, Texas, where he recorded the entire soundtrack. And we were there for a week, and we were working it against the backdrop of the film, playing things back, brought in violinists. A woman named Ali Gonino did the violin and some of the other vocals. And she's a pretty famous young, budding Hollywood star. She's been in a lot of lead roles on television programming. Anyway, the whole soundtrack came together, and we released it as well as the film. I hope I gave you a copy. Did I?
Yes, you did.
Good.
Absolutely.
And I just started streaming the film on our website, on our runningwildfilm.com website, and that's film singular. And on that stream, you can download the making of the music video or the music video. So we tried to make the music a big part of the film. It got so intense, the relationship between myself, Dayton, and the musician, because they all decided that they were going to come on the road. It was we were like a tour group. We were doing festivals and flip-flopping between coasts and different states. And we had 88 and 80, it was between his 88th and 89th year, Dayton in tow, and at some point we'd be pushing a wheelchair just to get to another gate, and he'd be holding Steve's guitar, and Steve would be holding Dayton's oxygen machine, and we'd be running to the next gate. It was quite a hoot.
He must have loved it. It
was fantastic for Dayton. It has kept him young.
It had to have been. Yeah. I can see him just blossom with all that. This is clearly his heart's passion was creating that ranch.
Yeah.
His heart's passion was bringing those horses and giving them a good life. It's clear throughout, and maybe that's the way you crafted the movie, or maybe it really is. It seemed like horses were just a central part of his entire existence. Once he got to Oregon as a young boy,
right?
When he said that his uncle had sent him a letter, well, you don't send a letter to a young boy talking about a bunch of wild horses and not expect him to show up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And but what's so unique about Dayton is not only was he wasn't born on the back of a horse, but he learned to love them, in his teen years. But here you have this cowboy who's a rancher who, loves to swath hay, loves to grow a field of hay. He still does that at the sanctuary, not even so much that they need it because they could purchase it, but because he just loves to do it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, he's this writer, he's got this whole poetic side to him.
Yeah.
So it's a really nice, wonderful combination. He's a very, very smart man. Very smart man.
Yeah, he clearly is a smart man. But he's also clearly a very sentimental man. And I really loved in parts of the movie you really explained how his wonder at the cranes, for example, he was engaged on an emotional level, and then it turned to an intellectual level and a scientific level, and he
Right.
melded those three parts of himself very well, it seems.
He loves birds. He is, as much as he loves horses, he loves birds. There are scenes that never made it to the final film. You know, when his son was climbing the ladder with the grandson and they were fixing that was a huge aviary that they had built.
I thought it was.
Yeah, they had brought in these exotic birds that were disappearing from Tibet, believe it or not. And he was raising them and trying to, you know, maintain that species. I mean, he has white albino peacocks on the ranch right now.
We have a bunch of questions here, Suzanne.
Okay,
but
and you know what? While we're asking that, I'm just going to go plug this in because I'm worried I'm going to lose battery. So I'm taking a walk through my house.
Okay.
Oh, there's my cat. There's my cat. Wait, can you see her? There she is.
Oh yes, she's quite beautiful. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm gonna scroll back here to see some of the questions here.
Okay.
All right. First of all, people commented on your photography, Suzanne.
Yes.
They thought it was a really beautiful photography.
Thank you. That's my wonderful cinematographer, Mauro Bertoli, who was with me on that fateful shoot in 1992 when I met Dayton. And he was the inspiration also for the film because he said to me, we've got to do a movie on this guy. And that was in 92. And Mauro still shoots for me today. He's a great, great cinematographer.
Well, and then were the historical photos and pieces of film easily accessible to you, or did that require a lot of research to find those?
It was a little bit of both, but the Hydes were really, really great about maintaining an archive of footage and photographs. And what we did for that was really interesting. You saw Ginny, the daughter, who was a bit crippled up. You know, she had 3 hip replacements, and there was no way that she could travel to us. And she had boxes and boxes and boxes of photographs. So we decided, my editor and I, Fetty, to actually fly to Sacramento and then drive to Klamath Falls, Oregon, go over to Ginny's house and spend a long weekend going through all of the photographs. And we brought with us a scanner because we knew that she would not want to let those out of her sight. So we sat in her living room just scanning and scanning and scanning for 3 straight days. It was at that time actually that we got a phone call from Steve Poltz, who said, I think I nailed the title track of the song. And he sent us an MP3, just a scratch track of the Song for Hawk, which is the song that you hear at the end with the credits, which is the title song from the movie. So that was a magical weekend. And with that, she had 8mm films from the past and 16mm film that they shot, the family. And I had all of that transferred.
Yeah, well, it really added a great deal. And by the way, I wanted to mention that I have a Jewel connection myself. It's
Get out of here.
I know I do. I used to babysit Jewel.
Alaska. Oh my goodness, what a small world.
Isn't it a small world? Jewel's mother, Nedra Carroll, is a really good friend of mine. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Wow. Well, Steve and Jewel are still, I mean, he'll still play for her on the road and whatnot, but they're still friendly. He just toured with her, I think, this past summer, past spring. Yeah.
Yeah. An Alaska girl makes good.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. So one of the other questions that viewers had was about his relationship with his children, because at various times through the film, he would almost apologize for his abilities as a parent. He seemed to really suggest that he was not a good parent. And yet he's the interviews with all 3 children, I would say the one child who is at the ranch with his mother was sort of the least close, or the one who gave you the least amount of information on the film, but the other two seemed very close to him.
And there's a four there. So there was 5 kids altogether, and Tyler, I tried to get an interview with him, and I probably should have tried to get him at the party, but he was lost in the crowd, so to speak. And then when we went back the weekend that we were doing the photographs at Ginny's, most of the family was away at a wedding in Portland, so they weren't around. So it was very hard to get him. But just so you get an idea, so Dayton, who appears mostly in the film, is Dayton's oldest son, and very close with Dayton. It's his namesake, right? But he lives in Sisters, Oregon, with his wife, and they have horses. And the big hope is that one day he'll settle out at the sanctuary. He goes quite often to help Dayton on some large projects that are physical and need that kind of help. And then there's Ginny, who we know is still living in Oregon, and she has, health issues, but she's very much of a writer and an artist herself, takes a lot after her father in that respect. And then there's John, who's the man who said, I don't really want to talk about it. He's living on the ranch with his mother and is very, very close with his mother. They run that organization together. They created an amazing fly fishing destination. If anybody out there likes fly fishing, you can actually go to the Yamsey Ranch and spend as much time as you want in one of the cabins, and they will cook for you. And it's the most amazing trout fishing in the Western United States. And then there's Tyler, who you didn't get to see. He's an equine veterinarian. And he and his wife took over his wife's family ranch, which I think is near Bend, Oregon. And so they're not around that often on the Yamsey Ranch, but he's really into horses like his dad, except he's doing it from the veterinarian side. And I know that John and Dayton go out to the sanctuary as a family. I just have not been there on the days that or the weeks that they've done that, as to be able to shoot. I've only been out there when Dayton was out there. And then, of course, we know Marcia's not around any longer. So that's the family structure.
Well, Dayton Jr. at one point in the movie says he seems to indicate he wants to accomplish more with his life.
Yeah, it's hard to walk in those big shoes of your father. I mean, here's a man who's won all sorts of environmental and conservation awards. Here's a man who, his book, Don Coyote, which I think you can find not only through the Sanctuary, which is wildmustangs.com website, but also on Amazon. It's called Don Coyote. It's one of my favorite of Dayton's 21 books that he's written, but it won the best book of the 1980s by the American Library Association. So he's been not only awarded these incredible conservation awards, but he's won a bunch of literary awards as well. You want to know something really funny? My son was in 10th grade and he had to take those standardized tests. And, it's on a Saturday. They call them the ACTs and the SATs. And this was the ACT. And he went to the high school, and then we picked him up when the test was over. And he said, hey, the reading and writing section of the test, guess what? I had to read a whole passage by Dayton Hyde. So, and my son, just so you know, my son's middle name is Dayton. I was so enamored with this man that when my son was born, we named him Jack Dayton Howells. So, it was really special, but that's how prolific a writer he is. And when the film came out, I was getting calls from teachers who teach the Macmillan Treasures series out in the 4th grade in California. It's a statewide mandatory, teaching tool for the 4th grade teachers. And there is a huge chapter in the English section of what they have to teach their 4th graders, all about Dayton Hyde and what he's done with the horses and snippets of his writing. It's really interesting. To me, anyway.
Oh yeah, I would like to go and read some of these things, particularly Don Coyote. I'm interested in the fact that he raised some coyotes and he had them with his cattle. I thought that their surrounding ranchers were unhappy with that whole experiment, and I can understand that.
Yeah,
but while I served Services kills coyotes. I mean, we pay our government to kill coyotes.
Right, I know, but he proved. I mean, he proved the year that they were dropping strychnine. And again, if you want to find out more about the coyote section, that's on the DVD extras, and it's also on that stream. It's not in the film, but basically, what happens is they start dropping strychnine to kill these coyotes, and he is so upset by it that he harbors them on his property, and he allows them to run free, and he's not putting down the poison, and he's not trying to get them shot, and his neighbors are all up in arms. And then the year that there was a major rodent outbreak, he said it was so bad that the rodents were eating everything. He said you would walk into the house and they'd be in the silverware drawer. It was so bad. But he really believes that his feed for his cattle was saved by the fact that the rodents weren't so prolific on his ranch because he had the coyotes. So he had this whole ecosystem working the way it should have been working. Something to think about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So can you tell us anything about the finances of the sanctuary? He mentions donations, he mentions selling horses, but just in watching the film, and you talk about that large a spread with that much fencing and all that equipment, it's got to be an enormously expensive operation. So do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I do. And let me tell you that when the one thing that gets the one disappointing thing, I guess, for Susan and for Dayton was that I kept in that whole part about the paint horse, stallion that they released into the herd to get some pretty paint babies that they could sell. I shot that in 2004 when the market dropped so severely and there were so many abandoned horses or horses that were starving, domestic horses, I'm not talking about wild horses now, that needed homes and needed to be adopted, they stopped all of their breeding programs. So they do not do that anymore. And so that's a really important point that I have to put out there. And then in terms of the financing of the sanctuary, it really comes down to tourism and private donations. They run, I think it's close to $1.2 or $1.5 million budget every year to run that sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the work is done by volunteers. Susan and Dayton do not take salaries. They have one or I think 3 salaried employees, or maybe 4 now with the ranch hand. And everybody else is a volunteer. You get a lot of folks that come with a caravan in the summer months and they pitch their tent or their caravan on the property, and then they work to help in the tourism part and the cleaning and all of the stuff that has to get done to run the ranch. The most of the money goes to feed, because the price of hay has gone up so exorbitantly with the droughts in Texas, et cetera, et cetera. Hay has gone up, and I'm sure you know this from where you live in Montana. It's just a lot more expensive now than it ever has been. So a bulk of their budget goes to the hay. And people say, well, why, if they have all this property to run on? Well, there's still those winter months that the horses have to get through. And a lot of the property is, rock and steep hills, which is great for the horses for exercise, but you have to make sure that they're well fed as well. When the tourists come, they mostly see just the front section of the sanctuary. They have to pay a much higher rate. I think it's like $750 to go on an all-day tour to the back of the sanctuary, where they're given a big lunch, and that's really where the horses that are truly wild, they don't come over to you and let you like give them some grain out of their hand, out of your hand. These horses are spooked if you walk the wrong way. But to see that and to see them in their natural state, you have to go several hours just to reach them. Mm-hmm. And so for that, they charge extra money. It's really tourism. I mean, tourism is a huge part of it. They're hoping more and more people will put them into their endowment, and that's been happening. And they try to get some grant money, and they work to get that. Mm-hmm. It's a struggle, though. It's a constant. Susan spends, 24/7 fundraising.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. Anything of that magnitude has got to be, you have to worry almost every year that you're going to raise that kind of money.
Right. Yeah. And that's stressful.
I'm sure your movie is helping, and I also know that since I became acquainted with your movie, I have talked to several people who have been there, and it seems like the word, the knowledge of the sanctuary is spreading, and
Oh, I
that's,
hope so.
yeah, and that's bound to help. Well, I have one last question, Suzanne. You've spent 20 years of your life engaged with this person.
I
How
know.
how has this movie impacted you?
Well, I really think that he taught me that I could, sort of realize my own dream. I wanted to make this film in 92, and I think I even mentioned it to him when we were leaving the sanctuary on that People magazine shoot. And then in 1996, I had the opportunity to meet him again when I was doing another film shoot for a different special where we needed to speak to somebody from the World War II generation who had reinvented themselves. So I said, "Oh, I know this great cowboy." And that's when I was pregnant. And he had said, "Hey, you going to name your kid after me?" And I said, "Yeah, maybe." "You ever going to make that film?" I said, "Yeah, definitely." But I had I was having a baby. So it sort of slipped past me all another bunch of years. It was after 2001 and the trade centers came down, and my son said, "How did I get my middle name?" And I thought, let's get out of New York and let's go meet the man who you were named after. And that's when he said to me, "I've never seen a hearse pulling a U-Haul full of stuff behind it before. When are you going to start this film?" And I realized if he could start a sanctuary, which was his dream, on credit cards, I could start a film, which was my dream, on credit cards. And it's taken me to a whole new level in my life. I mean, I was a television producer for years. That's a very, very different game, especially now with reality television, than creating feature documentaries where you're spending years with a person or a subject. And I like that so much more. So he influenced my life in that respect, definitely, and I thank him for that.
So this is your first feature film. I mean, that is a huge
It's my
step.
first feature film as a director. I
Uh-huh.
was producing films with Barbara Koppel before releasing this, but it
Uh-huh.
was all during that same period of time, 2002 till now.
Uh-huh. Well, congratulations, number one. It's a
So
beautiful
thank
film.
you.
It's
Thank
a
you. Thank
gorgeous
you.
film. Yeah. Let me look and see if there are any other questions. Oh, we have a question here about his health. And also, do you only do 3 questions in a row here? All right.
Okay.
Okay. How is his health? And are you working only on documentaries, or do you do films that are of more fictional variety? And she knows that you entered the film festival here, the Equus Film Festival, but have you entered the film in other festivals as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's we've been in, I don't know, I feel like it's been maybe 14 film festivals, some major film festivals. Like I said, we started out in Park City during Sundance, but at the Slam Dance Film Festival where we got picked up for distribution. And we then opened in 22 cities nationally. But that was after I had done so many film festivals, from Ashland, Oregon, to San Jose, to Sedona, Arizona, to Sarasota in Florida, to Palm Beach in Florida, the Black Hills. Of course, we had to premiere it there. That's that's the base of the film. Um, I think I mentioned Ashland, Oregon, um, uh, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It's the Wild and Scenic, which is a great environmental film festival that happens every year in Nevada City, California. So, and that's just to name a few. It just did a film festival in China and Korea, and it's getting sold internationally, which is exciting.
Very.
So, and I just found out from the Woods Hole Film Festival, which is by the Woods Hole Institute, where Bob Ballard did all of his work on the Oceanographic Institute, that I'm going to be the filmmaker in residence this summer, and we'll be showing the film there along with some of the other work that I've done. Dayton's health is fantastic. He's 90 years old. He uses his oxygen when he needs to. I was telling you earlier that he fenced 3,000 acres this summer with the help of a ranch hand, but he was out there every day doing it himself. He's really slow. They help, hopefully he doesn't fall down. But so long as he's walking with his cane or, with something to hold on to, we feel like he should continue doing what he loves to do, which is to be in his garden all summer, growing vegetables and flowers. He's tending to the horses. He's still driving into town on a daily basis. I mean, he's pretty incredible.
That's great. I had to admire his walk upstairs to get on his horse, and I think that's in my future. I now have to use stairs to put the saddle on my horse because of my right shoulder. So I know all of these little tricks are in my future, and I like to see somebody else and how they've done it.
I think there was one other question about a narrative film. Do I do narratives?
Yes.
And the answer to that is I've been asked now by several people since this film to work on some narrative films. We're just waiting for them to get financed.
Uh-huh. I was going to be one of my questions was what was next. Can you give us any kind of topics?
Yeah, I'm working on a film right now that I'm producing with another director on borderline personality disorder. So there's a real difference from this, beautiful environmental film. This is about mental health. And we just applied to all the festivals. We just found out actually that we got accepted to Big Sky.
Hey, to Big Sky, the documentary film. Are you gonna be back?
Yeah. So she has to respond to them because she has to see, what her status is with all the other festivals. But she's super. I'm sorry.
You need a place to stay.
Yeah. No. Yeah. We'll definitely. You'll see me if we come to Big Sky. You'll see me. Yeah, you'll see me.
Great. That would be wonderful. That's terrific. Yeah. Well, I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you allowed us, number one, to show your film, that you agreed to do this experiment with us tonight. We couldn't guarantee you a large audience, but we're going to have you back. We wanted to prove the technology, and that was all part of it. Think of this as a dress rehearsal.
Sure.
And it went really, really well. And people very much enjoyed it. They're all saying thank you.
Oh, thank you for all watching.
Yeah, and so let's make plans to do this again in the spring when our audience is much larger.
Okay.
And I do hope that you do come for the Big Sky Film Festival.
Wouldn't that be great? It would be so much fun. I really hope. She's gonna. I mean, she just has to work out her schedule, so she has to get back to them this week. But
yeah,
anyway,
February, isn't it in February?
Yeah, it's in February.
Yeah, well, come.
I know.
Yeah,
I have a question. How are my favorite donkeys?
Oh, the Divas went to the Sweets Barn yesterday to spread Christmas cheer.
Oh, I figured that. So was she all dressed up? Were they pulling the sled? They were pulling the sled? Do you have photos?
No, they weren't pulling a sled, but they were dressed up. They haven't yet been taught to drive. We've got Maud started a little bit, but not Miss Gertie. And it's just because we've been having too many other things going on. We have 3 new horses since you were here, Suzanne.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. And how much snow do you have right now?
Well, we have quite a lot, in fact. I would say, I don't know how many inches, but I was gone most of the weekend. I just got back this afternoon. I went to Hot Springs east of here with my family. We do it every winter, and came back to lots of snow. It was very cold where I was, and it's not quite so cold here. We're in the 20s today, I guess.
Okay, well,
we're very rich Christmas. Yeah.
And everything's bizarre here because of this El Nino and the jet stream. We're going to be at 70 degrees in New York on Christmas Eve.
Well, I thought that New York, Buffalo just got snow, didn't they?
Buffalo, that's the western part of the state, but by Manhattan, 70 degrees on Christmas Eve.
Oh, that's nuts.
It's nuts.
It is. Yeah,
it's really nuts. But you should
have
I hope you have a great holiday.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Have a very happy holiday for you and your lovely husband. I hope he comes with you to Big Sky.
Yes.
And your son, bring him someday.
I hope so.
Yeah. And have a happy new year. And I'll get back in touch with you right after the holidays for our next adventure with all of this.
Great. And thank you, everybody who's still listening, for watching the film. And, support the sanctuary. Look them up, wildmustangs.com. Yeah.
Thank you. Good
All
night,
right.
Suzanne.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.